Hello, this is Kevin Gator for PremiumBeat.com, and we're going to use After Effects to create this wonderful space scene. So here we are in After Effects, and here is the scene broken down. So we've basically got a 3D camera move through a ton of 2D assets made to give the illusion of a 3D scene. So let's go ahead and get started trying to recreate this illusion. So I'm going to begin by creating a new composition and just choose from the preset hdtv 1080 24. And make sure you have a duration that's quite long, around about 15 seconds will be plenty. Let's call this Space Comp and click OK. Now my Space Comp is ready, let's start filling it with some assets. First up, let's make our planet. That's probably the thing that you're most curious about, so let's get that one out of the way. Begin by choosing Layer and choosing a new solid. Once in there, go ahead and call that Planet and make sure that it's the comp size. The color is unimportant. Click on OK, and next up we want to add some turbulent noise. You can also use fractal noise, but it's pretty much the same thing. Once you have that selected from the fractal type menu, go ahead and choose small bumps. You can play with other settings, but I found small bumps gave me the most planety kind of look, and instead of soft linear, let's go ahead and choose spline so we get just a little bit more detail there. Next we want to play with the contrast settings, so we can crank that up a little bit and start pulling down the brightness until we find something that's a little tasty, and around about here should do it. So not too much, not too little. Can also increase the complexity to about 10, just so we get a little bit more detail when we're zoomed in at full resolution. We can further change the look by messing around with the evolution or the subsettings, but for our needs this is pretty much going to be okay. So once that's done, we want to make this into a sphere. So I'm going to type sphere in the effects here and double click on CC sphere. And there we have it. There's our planet. Next we need to play around with the color. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Colorama. And I'm going to drop this just above my CC sphere. And now we can see a planety looking thing. I don't really want to play with too many of the settings here, and instead I want to take the preset for Rusty. And that's going to give us a planet kind of look. We can go back and tweak our turbulent noise settings, and doing so will give us more control over the look of our planet. We can also change the scaling under the transform properties to get more detail in there, or try to get bigger looking craters, and round about there-ish should be good enough for me. We can try cranking the brightness down or bringing that up. Basically it's a little bit of a juggling act until you find something that you're happy with. That's going to do for the turbulent noise, I think. Let's come back to the CC sphere settings. If we take a look underneath the lighting here, you'll see that we can play with the intensity of the light and get a more planet kind of solar system look. And around about 180 is going to be enough. You can also change the height, which will take and change the shadow. What I want to do though is change the light direction and get it so it's coming a little bit above, and this is more or less the look that I want to go for. I might take that intensity down just a touch, And I might also lower or change the height settings just so I get the full planet in there. And that's looking pretty tasty. If we go under the shading options, what I want to do is bring up the specular to give it a little bit of a shine, so as if there was like water or cloud or some kind of atmosphere going on there. Diffuse is basically going to darken it, and ambient is going to control the gamma. So I tend to try to keep the ambient a little on the low side, and the roughness is going to increase the spread of the specular glow, and metal is also going to affect how shiny this is. So now that that's doing that, I'm going to mess around with that light height again and try to get that more or less at the top, and I might change the angle a little bit. In mine I had like a light source coming from over here, and I want this to kind of be the result of interacting with that light source. So we can still fine tune the intensity. What I want to do is avoid overcooking the area. Let's just change that height so it's more on the top there. Something like that might just do. Okay, so we can come back and keep fine-tuning this, and the angle may be a little more over. But I think this will do for this tutorial. Okay, next up, we can go in and choose curves. And we can start to affect the contrast of this a little bit more. We can crunch that by pulling this down here, and maybe boost those highlights, and also soften those shadow areas a little bit. And we can come in and change the intensity of some of this red. So let's just pull the red down a little bit and maybe flush those shadow areas. So this is more or less the look I'm going for. What I might do is just increase the radius here a touch, which is going to make our planet a little bit bigger. So around about 250 should be sufficient. I think what I'll also do is add a tint just to soften the overall hue and get it to look a little more in control. So just a soft look there. So we went from this to this. Maybe I'll put the curves after that. And there we are. Okay, so that's looking pretty okay. Next, I want to start bringing in my 2D assets. So what I have here is a couple of cloud layers. So I have these fluffy looking cirrus clouds, and to find those, all I did was went to Firefox and I did a CC search. So CC is the Creative Commons, and under that I typed in cirrus and found these wispy looking clouds. So you can just go here and go nuts. What we're essentially looking for is something like this, something soft and neutral, and something that's going to be easy to cut out, something that doesn't have boats and things and trees, because you don't find those in space. Once you've found a couple of assets like that, just go ahead and import them into After Effects and just drag them into the comp, and let's scale that down. I should have mentioned you hit S to make the scale appear when you have the layer selected. And I'm also going to drag the tint onto that. And again, I'm going to take curves and drop that onto the effect as well. And all I want to do is basically pull the curve over and clamp the effect. I might add a little bit of brightness too. And I'm just going to keep bringing this over until the blue has essentially gone dark, and try not to kill too much of the detail in the process. Okay, so that's looking pretty all right. Next, I'm going to choose blending mode of screen. So I'm going to turn it from normal to screen. And that's going to basically punch through the black areas and add transparency to our image. And if I hit on T and change the opacity, I can just bring that down. So it's a very subtle effect, probably round about 30 is going to be enough. Maybe a little bit more, about 35. Let's also do the same to our other cloud. So I'm going to just drag this one in as well and basically repeat the process. So I'm going to hit S for scale it down so it fills the window, and I'm going to return to the effects for my previous one and just select both of those, hold shift and click them both and hit Command C, Control C to copy them, and then just go back to this one and paste them on. So might have to just adjust the darkness there. So there we have it. Let's also change the blending mode of this one to screen. By the way, if you're going crazy wondering how I made these appear, you need to hold F4 to hide and reveal them. So if you don't see them there, just hit F4 and that's going to bring those out. Okay, so I'm also going to lower the opacity of this one. I'm going to take the same value and see if I hit it. So that's looking okay. What I might want to do is just rotate one of these. Let's take this one. Let's pull that on top. Just going to hit R for rotate. I'm just going to do this, and if I hold shift, it's going to go in increments. And let's have that round about there. And that will do. Maybe I'll just pull that over a little bit and scale it up also. There we are. So it creates a bit of a frame around our planet. Not much is happening in the way of 3D right now, so let's go ahead and enable 3D for all our layers, but we also need to go to Layer, New, and choose a camera for our scene. So 35mm should be good. And let's have a look what's going on so far. If I hit C and scroll through the camera options, we can create like a zoom into the planet, but I haven't actually created any depth in the scene. So we need to fix our layers by giving them some depth. So with the cloud selected, the top one, I'm going to hit P for position. I'm just going to move that in 3D space. So let's say 750. Okay, and I might need to scale that again so we don't see the edge. Okay, I'm going to take the other one and I'm going to make this one. Again, hit P, and this time the position will be 1500. And I'm also going to scale this one up again. And my planet, I'll keep at 0. Sorry, I should make these minus values, I realize. Let's take P again. Go minus 750. Okay, so that brings it closer to the camera, and we scale it down. Okay, no, that's actually bang on. And we take this one, sorry, P, and we'll make that minus 150. There we go, and let's just scale those so they aren't so super massive, but instead fill the viewport. And scale this one. There we go, round about there. Should be good. So our planet also has 3D, and the position of this one we'll keep on 0 so we know where it lives. So that's in 0. Okay, so if I make a camera move now and just zoom in, you see we're going to fly through these wispy clouds towards the planet. So we've got a bit of a parallaxing going on. Nice. Okay, I'm just going to undo that. Rather than use the camera position, what I'm going to do is create a null object to control the camera. I'm going to choose Layer, New, and Null Object. And I'm also going to enable this as 3D and go ahead and manipulate the position data. But before I do, I'm going to take the pick width for the camera and attach that to the null. So when I move this value, the camera is going to follow it along. So I'm just going to keyframe and make sure you're at the beginning before you hit that, and go to the end frame, and let's zoom in. So round about there, maybe Maybe about 500 could be enough. And if we preview that, I'm going to change from full resolution to about quarter resolution, just so it renders quickly. And let's do a quick RAM preview and have a look at that. Okay, so we've got a very simple animation. So it's looking pretty dynamic considering it's only a couple of 2D elements put together. And let's add some more to our scene. So we also had a nebula. So similar trick, I went to Firefox, I did a CC search. So if we come back again and type nebula and do a Flickr search, nebulae, you should find some rather awesome spacey looking images that you can use for your projects commercially or non-commercially. And there you go. Just scroll through these until you find something awesome that's going to make for a nice backdrop and add that to your scene. So my one looks like this, and I'm just going to drag that into my comp and put that in the background. I'm also going to hit 3D again, and I'm going to hit S for scale, and I'm just going to push that right back in Z space. And let's hit the position, sorry. And let's go nuts and go for like 10,000. We want this to just be right back in the background there. Hit scale again, bring it up. And there we have it. And I also want to reposition this so it doesn't look like it's smack bang in the middle, and instead plays a little bit with our environment. And I want the lines to lead us into the planet and not steal the show. Okay, let's scale that up a little bit more. So around about there should be okay. I'm also going to take the curves, pop that on our layer, and just crush that by bringing down the black of that. And also just soften, bring out those highlights a little bit, just to put a bit more punch in the scene, and maybe just drag up the dark area there a little bit. Okay, so it's starting to take shape. So the background should hardly move at all when we look at our scene, and when we rotate and stuff, it should still look like it's quite far away, and we won't notice that all of this detail is basically a flat layer. Okay, so next up, let's add some stars. So there's a million ways you can do this, and you could go ahead and use a particle emitter, but I took the poor man's route because I wanted to just keep it simple, and found that there's a preset inside of here, CC Starburst. If you add it to a new solid, and let's make sure we give it a name, so star field should be good. Click on OK, and double click, and maybe I should have chosen white, so go ahead and choose layer solid settings, and instead of black choose white. There we go, that's a little bit more star looking. Click OK, and if you hit spacebar to preview, and that's not what we want, so we need to go ahead and go into the settings here, change the speed from 1 to 0, and now these stars are going to be frozen. Now this isn't a 3D effect, it is a 2D effect. And also if we change the size, that's actually going to change the amount. So let's go for about 50. Okay, and I'm also going to make this a 3D layer, and I'm going to put this down here with my other stuff under the camera. Okay, and let's also change the position of this. And I'm basically going to make two copies. So I'm going to have one that's right up close to the camera, so about minus 500, and I'm just going to duplicate that and take the position of that one, and let's have this one at 500. Okay, I'm just going to scale this up too, so S for scale, bring that up, And that should be okay. Let's look at the full resolution and see what's going on now. Still a bit crazy busy. You can also play with the scatter, and sometimes you want to solo the layer so you can see that on its own. So the scatter will also increase or decrease the amount of that. Okay, let's take 650. And let's take our other star field and bring that in too. And also affect the scatter of that, just so we don't have too many. And maybe about there should be enough. So when we watch our scene now, although they're two flat layers, we're going to have that slight parallaxing, and we've also got this glittering effect that makes it all just that little bit more magical. So let's unsolo those and return to our scene. Now it's starting to take shape. My star though, my planet's looking a little flat. So I'm going to go back to the settings here and choose glow. And just pop one of those on there. And that's great. So let's change color channel to alpha channel. And let's bang up the radius of that. And that's going to give it a bit more planety kind of feel. You can also play with the glow threshold and get a better balance of that. And we can also play with the glow intensity and try to soften that down. So that's pretty okay. Again, tweak these to your heart's content. What I also added to mine, just for a little bit of extra special sauce, I added a pulsing star. So to do that, I just took a new solid, made it black, and I took a lens flare, and let's just pop that on here, and you can shuffle this around. And I also made it a 3D layer, and what I did was change the blending mode to screen, and I tried to line it up with one of my star fields, so around about the 500 mark should be good. Don't forget to scale it back up again. And I wanted it to kind of be the light that makes this shine happen. So I'm just going to go ahead and pop that round about there maybe. And I'm not a big fan of this effect straight out of the box. I'm going to go to maybe 105. I'm also going to go to the brightness and just tone that right down to maybe about 50, maybe less, maybe about 40 should be enough. And these bits here, I'm not a big fan of that, but we can live with that. Not really going to see that once we start colouring the whole scene. What I did to add a little bit of flair to that, it's going to be in 3D space, but it's not a 3D effect. It's a bit cheap. So to just jazz it up a little bit, I added an expression. So Alt click on the stopwatch and type wiggle and brackets 5,5. And if I solo this effect, basically I've added a random wiggle expression which adds like this pulse effect to the brightness of the star. So when we see it in our scene, it just adds a nice little touch and makes it feel like this star is glowing. So we're almost done. What I will do is add an adjustment layer, new adjustment layer, and let's go in and add a tint and just neutralize the scene. We've got a lot of crazy colors going on now, and we just want to pull it all together and make it feel a bit more believable. So let's go for about 30 maybe, and then we'll take curves and we'll just start bringing in some color. So I want to go into the blue channel. I want to just flush those highlights and dark areas. Maybe this way, there we go. I'm just going to darken that as well. Maybe just push that up. There we are. Right about there. And I can also just crush the scene a bit more and boost those highlights to get a bit more punch. Okay, and that's kind of getting there. I might just lift this a little bit. And we can go into the green channel and just maybe punch in a little bit of green. Or maybe take a little bit of green out. Round about there, maybe. So that's looking pretty okay. Let's have a little preview. We're still on full res, so it will take a while to RAM preview it. So I'll just lower the quality to about a third. And let's have a quick RAM preview. Okay, so that's looking all right. The last thing is to try to get a little bit more out of our planet. So it is a 2D effect. If we zoom right in, it's not going to look overly pretty. So if we take the camera and just go right in close, basically all we've done is made it big. So that's not very exciting. So what we want to do is try to fake a bit of a parallax, a bit of a 3D move. So on my planet, I've used an expression to control the view of the camera. And if I just select my planet layer and hit U, I can copy the values there. Big thank you to Video Copilot for sharing these expressions. What I need to do is go to my planet layer, find the sphere and go under the rotation options, Alt click and paste in the value. And I need to do this for each one. And I need to change this last digit to 1 on this one. And let's do the last one. Paste it first and change this to 2. Okay, and then I need to right click, choose transform, auto orient, and choose orient towards camera. And if we just solo our planet, what that's now going to do is create a 3D-ish kind of scene. So we're going to be able to move around and orbit our planet. So let's try and make a dynamic camera move. So remember, our null object is controlling our camera. So instead of the position, what I want to do is change the rotation. So I'm going to hit R for rotate. I'm going to put it round about the 4-second mark, and I'm going to add a keyframe for the Y. I'm going to come to the first frame. I'm just going to pull this over to the left just a little bit. I don't want to go too far because it's going to start revealing our layers. So around about -3 should be okay. And we can preview what we got so far. Just lower the resolution again. If I click play. So it's not only going to move forwards, it's going to start moving around our planet. But I want it to bank halfway, so I'm going to go to the last frame. I'm just going to pull the Y rotation to the other side. I'm going to go around a little more significantly. So it's going to start going to one side, and then it's going to move back the other way. So let's do a RAM preview of that. So I'm going to go back to full resolution, and I'll pause the video while it renders, and we can look at that in a second. So the scene is rendered as far as my RAM will allow. Let's take a look at what we have. And there we go. So with all of these effects, although there's a lot of 2D going on, there's enough parallax and a lot of 3D trickery to really create the illusion of a three-dimensional scene. So thank you for watching. I'm Kevin Gator for PremiumBeat.com. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial.